Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup, coming to you live. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I'm the news editor for the Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and columnist and editor for the Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. And as usual, before we start, just to remind you, as soon as you arrive, hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to our channel, share this stream, and check out our memberships here on YouTube. But more importantly, check out our Patreon, where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle, of the journalism that we do here, that is not beholden to anyone's interest. And well, let's start with what has been happening in Lebanon over the past few hours. Israel has significantly intensified its attacks in the south of Lebanon. Some very well, the images we've gotten used to, but some very intense attacks is what I'm trying to say. Karim, why don't you tell us a bit more about what's been happening in the south? And because this started last night, right?
Yes, last night, Israeli Air Force, not drones, they bombed many places in South Lebanon, and their bombs were concentrated on bulldozers and excavators, and they also bombed a workshop where they maintain these excavators. Yeah, for instance, since the end of Lebanese-Israeli war last year, nearly a year has passed. Who believes that? Israel is always targets any excavator or any bulldozer for any person who's trying to rebuild or remove the rubble from his house or his land. Now they escalated this yesterday. They bombed many places where you can find bulldozers or any equipments used to remove the rubble, and they also bombed the place where people go after Israel bombed their tools by drones. So yesterday they made a big campaign about that. Four Lebanese civilians were killed, and that's what's happening. Yani now, Israel by military force is preventing Lebanon to reconstruct or even to remove the rubble. Yani if anybody goes to the south to remove the rubble, they are targeting them. And many workers died since last year in Lebanon. Yani you have a worker, a contractor, go please remove the rubble, open the roads. If this guy goes there, even he's with Hezbollah, regardless of his ethnicity or whatever, they bomb him and they destroy the excavator or the bulldozer. So that's currently what's happening in Lebanon. And of course, the Lebanese government is silent. The best thing that they did yesterday, Nawaf Salam, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, said that the image of the international community might be ruined if they don't stop Israel. So that's the strongest thing that he has said since this started.
Did you
Sorry,
just lose power?
but yeah, we lost power. Thank you, Nawaf Salam.
Thank you, Nawaz Salam. Thank you, Joseph Aoun, their life of living in Lebanon. Yes, to Sophia, who writes in the chat, they almost hit Unifil recently. Yes, yesterday they dropped 4 grenades on a
And the
Unifil position.
Lebanese president made a big show of saying, oh, poor Unifil. He never makes these statements about Lebanese civilians who are getting killed by Israel, but he, extended his apologies and, well wishes to the Unifil team. It's quite astounding. Just by the way, the reason we're not in the studio today, because 3 times not just the light, but the fuse box went click. And so we thought that's just not going to work. This is the state of Lebanon, folks. I mean, you see it here on the Cradles podcast regularly with the blackouts. So don't forget those donations.
Don't forget those donations and hit those like buttons. Come on.
Yeah, I just want to say now I will put some videos of yesterday's bombings in South Lebanon. Yeah. So now we will see the amount of destruction if the program works. It should work.
Murphy's Law, the Cradle News Roundup today. There we go.
So this
crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely
so this is
crazy.
in our workshop. This is a workshop. And this also from yesterday.
Oh my God.
And here, this is a short interview. We will not put it all, of course, without a sound. This guy, I don't know if he's the owner or he works there. It's clearly You can see the images behind him, the photos of the bulldozers and other tools used to like just remove the rubble, which is now Israel till now is preventing the people of the south of Lebanon to do it. And of course, UNIFIL is not doing anything, and the Lebanese army is not removing the rubble.
Yeah, I mean, I guess dual use technology. But what's astounding is um, in Israel, they're willing to put a lot of money and rebuild the areas that settlers vacated during the war, fled from during the war. They're throwing money at these settlers to go back to their homes, and they won't. And in Lebanon, despite all the dangers, the Lebanese in the south are trying to clear their lands and rebuild their homes. And it just goes to show, when they talk about ownership of land, it's the love for the land, right? I mean, the Lebanese will go back no matter what. And the Israelis, you can't pay them enough, literally.
To go back. Yeah, like Kiryat Shimona, we've talked about this before. Like around 65% of the residents still refuse to return, despite the fact that from the Lebanese side there hasn't been an attack since November. Like the Lebanese
Yeah.
side is the one that is actually respecting the ceasefire. Meanwhile, the other side has violated it thousands of times. Very quickly, thank you to Kimberly Jones for the first super chat of the day. Let's keep them coming, guys. Let's replace our fuse box there at the office.
Yeah. Karim, we have, I don't know if you have the pictures of the merch.
Yes. Yeah.
Because people have been asking about the Cradle mug that I've been using throughout. I actually use them, not to plug them. I actually use these every day. And then Esteban started using them. And
Yeah,
today,
mine's
for the first time, I don't have it. But we are now live on our site. If you go to support us, you will click through and see the different kinds of merch we have. We have t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, hats, and tote bags right now. And we have 3 different designs. 2 of them are going to be standard. Karim, maybe you can show some pictures.
Yeah. I can show pictures, or I can open the merch store.
Do it. Open it, I think, so people can see what we
Okay.
have on offer. I didn't know this. I'm also finding out. I'm as excited as the people in the chat. So help. Thank you so much for everyone in the chat again. To remind you, just leave that like, hit that like button as soon as you arrive. Even the trolls, go ahead and hit that like button. Oh, this is so cool.
Yeah. So chat, that's what we've been working on, and I spent so much time and effort on this, and stress, of course. So this is our store. I will link it today, of course, after the episode ends. Store.thecradle.co. This is our store, and here we have the mug, of course. You can click it and you can order it, and you can order more than one. And here you, of course, you
Christmas
can.
is coming up, and Thanksgiving and Halloween,
Yeah, and here there's all the details needed for the mug, for instance. And of course, we have 2 colors for each merch.
Show the design on the tote bag. Which you can get on other things as well. The tote bag one has Arabic calligraphy underneath it, which says the Cradle of Civilization. So we thought that's nice. Not just the cradle. We love our logo, but it's nice to remember the region we're in. And we think it's pretty. And then we got snarky on the third one. We will change a lot of these out. I think the Cradle logo with the Arabic and the regular Cradle logo will stay consistent, but we will have other. Here, show the. Yeah, we will have other things, sort of limited edition things. Where's the? It's West Asia, stupid. We do have. So I think we discussed in the group, and
I'm guessing it's the
people
one
said
with the
they'd
map.
buy that one. And we were like, let's do it. So zoom in if you can. It says, yep, it's West Asia, stupid. And the first one of this was bought. And I did speak to the person who received it, and they said the t-shirt quality is excellent, which is important for me. I don't want to wear these, stiff, uncomfortable things that you have to wash 100 times before they soften up. So Please.
It looks amazing. I'm so happy we're doing this. I'm so glad we finally did it. And yeah, everyone, tell your family, tell your friends. Now you can get official Cradle merch to help out this outlet that remains independent, thankfully. And yeah, I
And
don't know
of
if you guys have
course,
anything else.
yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
of course, the feedback is very important because, to be honest, we are new to this. We worked very hard. We made our own research, and we did all the designs because here in Lebanon, we are a small country. It's very difficult to find people that are really experts in these stuff. So we did all the research, and the feedback is very important for us. And thank you all. And if you don't want to buy, you can at least give us a feedback.
No, but for sure, we know our followers, we know our viewers, and we know they are very committed. We know they love our content, and also us as well.
Yeah.
And we know you guys love us. But yeah, so go check it out. Go check it out. Help out the Cradle, and as well check out our Patreon, as I always say. Yeah, so the bombing in Lebanon continues as the pressure continues to rise on the resistance. Right now, what we have heard recently is that Hezbollah, the parliamentary bloc of Hezbollah, and the Amal movement are planning popular protests.
Yeah.
We had a feature this week, right? I read this feature. It was very interesting about kind of like the steps that Hezbollah would have, and that so far it still seems very unlikely that we're going to see a confrontation between the resistance and the army. The army chief a few days ago was reported as saying, "I'd rather resign than have to order our soldiers to start fighting other Lebanese." Although the army then kind of denied it, they put out this very weird statement that attempted to deny but never really denied his words. Yeah, this is the one. They're playing with resistance fire. I recommend everyone goes to read it. I don't know if you guys have anything else to add. There's other topics that we'd like to discuss today as well. But if you guys want to say something else about the situation in Lebanon.
I mean, I think it's just going to be really interesting. The last big resistance march in this country was in March 2005, right? And March 8th. And it basically was 500,000 people. And then the pro-US crowd came out a week later on March 14th. And actually the coalition of pro-US political parties in this country, to this day are referred to as the March 14th bloc, or M14. So the last big pro-resistance bloc came out, a protest came out back in 2005, and it was, like I said, 500,000. We know that, Western media was telling us that there were over 1 million people at Hassan Nasrallah and Hisham Safiuddin's funeral. So I think it's going to matter. I think it's going to remind the sort of the prime minister and the president and their cabinet that although they've been juiced up for the last 6 months, and they feel like now Lebanon's theirs, they don't give a darn about the South. They don't care who's dying there. They don't care about Israel's occupation. They want money coming in. They want to shut down depositors' claims permanently, who lost all their life savings in the financial collapse in 2019. And they want to, redo the banking system. None of the banks will suffer whatsoever. So reform, under the guise of reform, they're really trying to get rid of depositors, the pain in the butt, the depositors and their, millions and millions and millions of people have saved up all their lives. They just want to get rid of that. So this is, they're going to be reminded if 500,000 or 1 million come out, maybe not in one shot also, but maybe consistently for days and days and days. They're going to be reminded that they have they are the one percenters here. There's a lot left to Lebanon, and I think
Thank you, Gulnara Marches.
I think these, the resistance and their allies in organizing these marches would be wise to bring in themes that resonate with all Lebanese, which is, again, their deposits, being stolen, being wiped out, and them staying quiet for years in the hope that they would get real governance and real reform to the financial sector, not just banks making out like bandits as they are now. But to use these common themes to gather everybody and we had this poll. We talked about this poll a few weeks ago, and that over 50% of Lebanese don't believe that the government should disarm the resistance
without a defense strategy. That's what they
without
said.
a defense strategy. And 70% plus of Lebanese said the army cannot handle Israel, and the army cannot handle an onslaught by the Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria. So, the resistance weapons are some kind of deterrent for people who don't even support the resistance in this country. They know that the threat is now from two borders.
Yeah, and like the fact that Israel just keeps bombing the south and keeps threatening, and what they're doing in Gaza as well, right? Like the Lebanese government and the Lebanese army it's apparent that they are not prepared to handle this. Like Nawaf Salam, like it's just like the hopes and wishes that Thomas Barak and Morgan Ortegas are going to do something if Israel attacks Lebanon. I want us to move on to something. We have many topics to discuss today, like even a bit beyond West Asia. But this morning, The Guardian came out with a very upsetting report. The Guardian, 972 magazine, and Local Call reported that according to Israeli army data, 3 out of every 4 Palestinians detained in Gaza since the start of the genocide and being held in Israeli torture camps are civilians, are non-combatants. Only 1 out of every 4 are combatants of the Palestinian resistance. And they detail some, very egregious cases. They talk about an 82-year-old woman with Alzheimer's who was jailed for 6 weeks, as well as single mothers. They talk, you were talking about thousands of people that have been detained in Gaza. And according to Israel's own intelligence, they are non-combatants. They know they are non-combatants, and they're being held in these torture camps where there's a scabies outbreak, where they are being, held in stress and torture positions for hours upon hours each day. In the first weeks after the start of the genocide, I don't know if you guys remember, there was this letter from an Israeli doctor who was serving as detaiman, who said, we are amputating limbs on a daily basis because the prisoners are being kept handcuffed and hands and feet in stress positions for like days on end. And now to, have this confirmation that a large number, 75% of those detained in Gaza are civilians. I mean, I am a bit at a loss for words with this situation.
And the fact that they're reporting that many of the sick, disabled, and elderly Palestinians are shoved into their own hangar, which the Israelis have dubbed the geriatric pen. The geriatric pen. I don't know. I've been watching these, what are they called? These channels like Who Do You Think You Are? Where people go and trace their ancestry and trace their heritage and DNA. And so many of these lead back to Europe and the Holocaust. And I was just watching, I think her name's Ruby Wax, Canadian, maybe, comedian who knew nothing about her family background, going and finding out, their family lived in Vienna, and finding out how atrociously Jews were treated then. And this was just yesterday. I was watching it, so it's fresh. And everything they were naming, the beatings, the humiliation, the starvation. Jews were not allowed to buy eggs and bread and milk. They were not allowed to buy it, I was thinking, well, at least they get to buy cereal. I don't mean that in any kind of nasty way. What was being repeated in this was not even as bad as what's happening in Gaza, and it's shocking to me. And then to put, don't these people have parents and grandparents? To put the elderly, there's a woman in there, an 82-year-old woman with Alzheimer's, jailed for 6 weeks, a single mother separated from her young children. When she was released after 53 days, she found her children begging on the streets. How different is this from the way Jews were treated in Europe? during the Nazi reign.
Yeah, exactly.
This is, by the way, this is by Europeans. This is before the Nazis even got to Austria. This is by Europeans who hated Jews and were fine with discriminating against them and having them live in ghetto-like situations, all right? Before the Nazis even came in. And now what do we have? Jews, the only Jewish state in the world, treating people this way. I mean, yeah, sorry, no words.
Go ahead, Karim.
Yeah, and it's the same topic. Also, The Guardian, around 10 days ago, they released an article that the title of the article is First Thing, Israeli military's own data indicates 83% civilian deaths rate in Gaza. And inside the article, they say fighters named in the Israeli military intelligence database account for just 17% of the total, which indicates that 83% of the dead were civilians. And I did some research also because now I remember when Sharmin talked about the Nazis. From 2023 to 2025 in Gaza, the civilians, and according to the data in the Israeli army, is 83%. In World War I, it was around 50%, and in World War II, it was around 60%. That shows that the suffering in Gaza is way more than World War I and World War
It
II.
surpasses everything we have ever seen before.
Yeah, for sure. And we see it every single day, every single minute. I just speaking of lies, I mean, for many of us who've been watching events very carefully for the last 2 years, none of this is a surprise to us. The fact that this is popping up in Western media now shows that, you know, they can't, their own populations, their own readers and viewers have had enough of this. And so they're, you know, they have these gratuitous pieces that cover some aspect of Israel's horrors so that they can say, look, check mark, we do cover it, we're balanced. They're not. But the lies are just so extreme in every sense now. It's beyond Gaza. You know, Australia saying that Iran is launching attacks, anti-Semitic attacks in Australia. Like, why would the Iranians care to go attack Jews in Australia when there are the biggest population of Jews in West Asia live in Iran, and happily so? By the way, Western media has interviewed them over the decades, you know, every so often saying, oh, with headlines, there are Jews in Iran and this is their story, you know, and then the story is always like, yeah, we're treated well here. We have the right to practice our religion. We have a member of parliament. By law, by constitutional law, we are entitled to a member of parliament, even if we're two people. You know, so Australia is saying that. Donald Trump is saying that the Chinese and the Russians and the North Koreans are in China now for the SCO meeting. It's an international organization, are plotting against America. I mean, does anybody believe anything they say anymore? I mean, I haven't believed it for a long time, but I mean, for our viewers, is there anything that comes out of their mouths? You know, the threats, I mean, same with Russiagate from back then. I mean, we weren't 100% sure because it was blanket coverage about Russiagate, Russia interfering in the US elections. Turns out it's a complete nothing burger. Nothing happened. There was no Russian interference. And even though that was proven over time and before Trump came in and, you know, made a big hoo-ha about this, we saw that there was no evidence, but it was never in the headlines, so people were left with that impression. I mean, the lies are damning. They're every day. They're over nothing important as well. Who thinks that Iran is in Australia, you know, lighting fires in synagogues? I mean, are they serious?
The lies, the drug boat that they just shot in the Caribbean, in which they claim, you know, was 11 people carrying cocaine. They send all of these expeditionary force, 4,000 Marines, to bomb a little like dinghy that is like supposedly smuggling drugs all the way from the Venezuelan coast to the US, which is, you know, like 8,000 nautical miles.
And they've got 5,400 American troops that have amassed, or
Yeah.
personnel that have amassed because Venezuela has suddenly become the kingpin of drug trafficking.
Suddenly, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask about a Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani in Afghanistan. Let's not talk about them. Let's talk about Venezuela, that is actually dismantling these cartels. And the UN, the DEA, other U.S. agencies, other international organizations have all determined that the drug that reaches the U.S., the cocaine in particular, leaves through the Pacific, leaves through Ecuador, through Peru, through Colombia, and it reaches the Pacific coast of the US through the Caribbean, and in particular through Venezuela. You're talking about like less than 5% of the cocaine. So this is obviously an attempt at regime change, and it obviously, it illustrates your point, Sharmeen, about the lies, because from the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq to the chemical attack in Ghouta in Syria to the mass rape and decapitated babies on October 7th to the cocaine dingy to a U.S. coast, and now what's next? Like, in Iran, the same. What you're illustrating, they are born to lie, they are bred to lie, and then the media just like at this point, who trusts the mainstream media anymore?
And
honestly,
the thing is, we're hearing statements from various European leaders. Lately, I've just seen them all over social media, and I'm thinking, are they deranged? Are they looking at the same realities we're looking at? They're who was it? Female European leader was saying just today. I saw
Kaja Kallas, was it?
Yeah, I think so. That Russia didn't fight the Nazis.
Yeah, she said this, right? Like does new what?
No, but I mean, you are rewarded for cleaving to the lying Western narrative. You are rewarded for that. And speaking of rewards, the IAEA, the head of the IAEA, the International Nuclear Safeguards Agency, has announced he will be running for Secretary General of the United Nations, which was promised to him if he can get Iran's nuclear program in a corner. And when Israel, a rogue nuclear state, struck Iran in June, struck Iranian nuclear facilities. These are facilities that have been identified and cleared by the IAEA as civilian programs, okay? Nuclear energy programs with zero weaponization. When the rogue state of Israel that has up to 200 nukes in its little arsenal attacked these civilian nuclear facilities in Iran, the head of the IAEA did not condemn it. He said nothing about it. In fact, information came out, and the Iranians allege that this has gone on for a long time, that he colluded with the Israelis and passed on information to the Israelis and made the Israelis aware of the nuclear scientists whose names that they had amassed for, I don't know, various purposes. It's not relevant to the IAEA, who's studying nuclear energy and nuclear science in Iran. But they had gathered these names and undoubtedly passed them on to the Israelis. And this man was rewarded for his lies, okay? Because don't forget, before the Israeli attack, an IAEA report had come out falsely accusing Iran of something or suggesting, just enough so that it could make headlines and make Iran sound like a malign actor.
It was suggesting that they violated the NPT, right, and the non-proliferation, I think.
Yeah, with no evidence. Usually these guys are really installed by the Americans. I mean, it goes back quite a long way. And anyone who hasn't towed the line has been, when he's left his post, has become so marginalized. And I don't remember the fellow's name now, but he talked about Iran's advances after he left office, and we never heard from him again. So this guy, what is his name, Esteban? The head of the IAEA.
Rafael Grossi, the Argentinian, the shame of Argentina. Well, one of the shames of Argentina. Argentina has many shameful actors.
And he's running to be Secretary General of the United Nations. But I think, even
and the Iranians said it before, Sharmeen. They said that he did what he did, and he accused Iran of this because he wants to run, and 2 or 3 months later, he did.
there you go. You get your exclusives and your facts from Iranian media and Iranian officials, not from Western ones. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting because we're in very contentious times where there are two poles now in the world. So I don't think the next Secretary of General will be a shoo-in in the way the past few have been, basically ushered in by the Americans in the post-Cold War era, in which they were the only pole. They were the only leaders of the world. Yeah.
The indispensable nation, as Joe Biden.
The indispensable nation. So let's see what happens over this contest for the next UN Secretary General.
Wasn't Annalena Baerbock, the German foreign minister, who said Israel has a right to kill civilians, also, was she up for the general? She was for a UN position too. I can't remember what it was. But a few months ago, she was also, put her hat in the ring. What were you going to say, Karim?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a picture which shows the power of propaganda. I remember that when Charmaine talked about that, the lady who said that the USSR didn't defeat Germany. So, and not many people know this picture, although it's very interesting. So this is the picture, and it's in French. It's a French poll that they conducted 3 times till now. And the question is, who contributed the most for the defeat of Nazi Germany or to Germany? In 1945, French people said that 57% of the defeat or the damages that happened in Germany is because of the USSR, 20% the United States, and 12% the UK. And in 2004,
70 years and a lot of Hollywood later, in 2004, go ahead.
In 2004, 58% of the French people think that
the US
saved them. And these are the French people. And imagine the percentage in other countries that were not like too much affected by World War II. So this is the power of propaganda.
It's wild. Like in 60 years, the numbers essentially reversed. They reversed completely. And then go ahead.
And this is a French poll. It's not like a Chinese or Russian poll, just for people to know.
It's not an Iranian poll. It's not a Hamas poll. Are you sure, Karim?
No, but this just goes to show the victors write the history, right? And they wrote a completely different history. The amount of Americans I see on Twitter, by the way, I tweeted that poll years ago, and I pulled it out every so often when the propaganda gets too loud. I'm like, you people are too stupid. This is what can happen to your brain with enough propaganda. You think you know, you don't. And it's quite astounding to me that, I mean, a lot of Westerners see zero upside to the Russians, and because they don't know that the Russians have fought fascism consistently, last century. And if you've ever been to the former Soviet Union, you can go places where you see mass graves, just absolutely mounds and mounds, massive mounds, because around 20 million Russians died beating down the Germany's eastern flank, and weakening Germany so significantly that they couldn't keep things up even on their western flank. And
remember, no, it's like I want to mention something, that is that, remember, there's always this argument that like the victims of communism, that communism has killed 100 million people across the world, and these numbers include Nazi soldiers. Right? When you hear this argument, 100 million, is like it includes Nazi soldiers and other, bad actors.
Not only that, when I did like a fast research to see about Gaza and the percentage of people that died, civilians in Gaza, and what died in World War II, I read an article which is like documented, but I didn't save it because I didn't think I will talk about it, is that the United States, France, and the UK killed more civilians than Nazi Germany. So that's also a thing.
Wow.
Yeah, quite astounding, But so just a warning, when you see polls like this, just understand how much of it you're getting, and the propaganda machinery of the West, especially as the West declines, has gone into full throttle.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that they're telling us that the Chinese are dangerous when the Chinese are, have never in the history of the world has 1 billion people been lifted out of poverty in just a few decades. Never have we seen the kinds of innovation as we are seeing in China. And you see, Westerners who have moved to China for various reasons, maybe for work or maybe because they were tired of living, where they were. And they talk about like every convenience exists for the citizenry. Prices are low, everything's affordable. From childcare to, like, I was watching something the other day, Chinese indoor playground for kids. Actually, let them. They don't just play in ball pits and slides, but they get to pretend that they're workers, like in a cafeteria or in a car wash, and then they get like play money. It's like real life experiences that benefit a young child, to, I guess, help them mature, along the way. They don't live in these bubbles. They're limited on scrolling time. There's just so many things that this government, this nefarious, dangerous commie government is doing, and let's put, I don't know, I think Esteban, you sent foreign policy article.
Oh yes.
Karim, it's in our group. If you can just put up the headline.
It's Karim is the article just before the link you sent us for the Riverside. Is the one right above it. And I guess this brings us to the other events that kind of shook the world a bit this week. And it was the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Tianjin.
Well,
and the military parade that kind of capped off this summit.
That's just it. So the Western media and politicians have poo-pooed the parade and the gathering of global majority leaders in China for the SCO meeting, suggesting that this was the deviant world. These were all malign actors. They were plotting to undermine the Western-led neoliberal global order, which I hope everyone is, because have you seen your homeless? What are you producing anymore?
The drug addiction problem.
Yeah. I mean, horrible living in Western countries right now. Mm-hmm. So foreign policy comes out with this China, put
it back again, Karim. It says China's military is now leading. That's their headline.
And it starts off saying, like, look, we've been telling ourselves these things about, like, just China copies our technology. Everything they do is pirated, okay? But now it's time to recognize that China is way ahead now in everything, right? But now we're seeing it, the military. And I don't know, Kenny, if you check your Telegram and your WhatsApp, I sent you a link that I posted today, a video I posted today.
It's a video comparing
Trump's military parade versus the 80th anniversary military parade that China put on. I mean, it looks like a ragtag bunch of people who just got out of their bunk beds, and the other one looks like a well choreographed, very disciplined military organization, that consists of millions of people. And the juxtaposition of those two videos just kind of is comic.
I remember when the Beijing Olympics happened in 2008. I was living in the US at the time, and people freaked out. Like, I remember even South Park did an episode about how people freaked out about, like, wait, how is China capable of putting on such a display?
Yeah.
And now, like, look, nearly 20 years later, again, we are seeing Chinese ingenuity on full display, and we see it every day now. Like you were discussing, Charmaine, everybody who goes to China, just their minds are blown about what they see, and that China is not only leading, militarily, as foreign policy very well puts it, it's also leading in the battle against climate change. Right now, China is leading in the change of the energy grid to solar power. Just between January and May of this year, they built enough solar energy plants, solar panel fields and wind farms to produce as much energy as Indonesia or Turkey. That blew my mind. In 5 months.
Oh, this is the. I mean, look at these Americans. Like nobody said right, left, right, left. I don't know. It's just.
And this was,
eventually-
remember, this was sponsored by Palantir. This was sponsored by Peter Thiel. These little, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is so sad.
I'm gonna look at that little whatever that is being. I can't. I'm actually, as some of our viewers know, because I mentioned before, heading to China this fall, and I'm not going to do tour stuff. I'm actually gonna. One of the things I finally decided I'm going to do is go to Guangzhou for the big October exhibition. It's like a month-long exhibition where you have 1 week it's electronics, the other week it's like furnishings, the other week you know what I mean, like the best of what China has to offer. I mean, they have a number of these expos, but I think there are 2 seasons, maybe March and October, that are particularly intensive, and people come from all over the world. I'm just going to go to see what they have, because I can't believe it, and I'm very taken by the fact that, and we don't see this in governance in not just the West, but a lot of the world that has sort of assumed Western style neoliberal governance, right? Which is taking care of the corporations, the 1%,
The banks.
right? And not really taking care of your citizenry. But the idea that when you identify a problem, and this goes to what you were talking about, solar energy and their massive solar energy, acres and acres of solar paneling in China. When you have a problem and it's identified, the Chinese seem to get right on top of it. Instead of hiring their cronies, they're hiring the most maybe innovative minds, people who've come up with ideas that they'd like to test out. I did see this in Iran when I did some deep digging in 2012 and how Iran is managing despite Obama's biting sanctions, and found that in almost every area, especially in the sciences and manufacturing, Iran was just light years ahead of where it had been. So look at this. I mean, China's machinery could come to a stop if it doesn't have energy to fuel its economic engine. And so instead of waiting and finding the Americans blocking routes to deliver oil and gas to China, they're coming up with indigenous technology and programs and instituting them overnight to prevent, this is a security issue. Water is a security issue. Being able to turn your lights on is a security issue. So it's quite astounding to see this kind of thing. But the parade, that video, I was like, what am I watching?
It's insane. And I want to stick just for a second with this idea of the energy grid thing. Karim, I sent an image to our chat. I don't know if you can put it on, which I think illustrates what I'm going to talk about. And it's Pakistan over the past several months has been kind of also shifting its energy grid. It's not because the government is doing anything. It's not like the Pakistani government, the coup government that was imposed there by the US Embassy, is actually doing anything. It's because the people are importing Chinese solar panels en masse, to the point that the actual energy grid is all of a sudden shifting, right? And this image kind of shows how the U.S. and China between January and July of 2025 and 2024, how they have also shifted their energy, right? And you have China all of a sudden leading in solar, leading in wind, leading in nuclear, while the U.S. is leading in coal. While the U.S. is leading in coal energy, in coal plants, and that is just insane, not to even speak about Europe. But this idea of the solar panels, of like the cheap Chinese solar panels that the Pakistani people are like putting on top of the roofs of their houses, the African nations have also, this year is expected that Africa will boost their imports. And I mean, throughout the continent, they will boost their imports of Chinese solar panels by 60%. So they will also, all of a sudden, like, look at what just happened in Lebanon right now. Like at the start of this podcast, like power goes out, and the government does absolutely nothing about this, right? They are just like, well, you guys
The
figure out what to do.
U.S.-backed government, the U.S. instructed
blocks
government.
Chinese power plants, that blocks Iranian
Right.
fuel, that blocks Russian aid in developing anything that would help the Lebanese deal with this situation. Well, now maybe the Lebanese should look at Pakistan, should look at the African nations and be like, hey, maybe we should also start importing Chinese solar panels because they are changing the energy grid of these massive nations. And before I end this, my thought, let me just thank Bortography, who says, happy to see Miss N energy returns. Navido support to the cradle. Whoever deliver weapons, deliver bodies. The one eye king rules the land of the blinds. Miss N will prove her boiling the frog in due time. From Brazil, muito obrigado, Portography. And yeah, so I think, I don't know if you guys want to talk about the SEO summit, because one of the big things that came out of it is that Russia and China signed a gas deal that will essentially see the gas that used to flow to Germany and was going to help Germany change its whole energy grid through the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Now it's going to flow to China. Now Russia is going to sell that gas to the Chinese.
Yeah. There are a lot of moving parts. Honestly, I don't even know how we get through some of these podcasts sometimes. There's just so much to cover. But for me, I always like to look at the big picture to sort of explain what's happening on the ground in our region and around our region. So, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting last week? Last week.
It was a few days ago.
A few days ago.
Tuesday,
Yeah. Sorry again, I've been traveling. I think everyone was watching this for a variety of reasons. One special one was, I think that the Western media was very keen to look into and cover. And they did a number of articles and headlines about how Trump has pushed Modi to Xi Jinping, right?
Right into his arms, yes.
The dragon elephant is coming together. And so I wouldn't say from what we've seen that anything exceptional happened on that front. For sure, Modi is, recalibrating because India is a proud country. And
they're being bullied.
And the Indian media is saying, even if Trump wiped out those tariffs, this is not going to be forgotten by Indians. It was a slap in the face of, a leader who is very popular among some fascistic elements of Indian society, but has sort of led like a strong man, nonetheless, even for those his detractors, and so it was a humiliation. So Modi, of course, went to China, and there he did the most interesting thing he did there, because from what I gather, there was no big India-China thaw at that thing. It was progress in motion. Momentum was carried on. We covered about 2 weeks ago that after the Trump tariff announcement on India, the Indians sort of accelerated understandings with the Chinese. They came to a number of understandings with the Chinese on their mutual border disputes, okay, which have flared up in several instances in a very bad way. But the border issue, which is Indians seem to be obsessed with, is not the sum of these two countries and their relations. Both countries are hyper-focused on economy and development and business opportunities. And so I think in China, in the last few days, Modi and Xi probably decided to keep the momentum going, because for India, the border thing is a big, the strongman issue of Modi again, the borders with, he's always taken problems and made them into like, conflict. And so it's to create deconfliction over these border issues. And that is in progress. So that's important. And, it seems that they're going to accelerate those things, because for India, that's an important, I think, issue to nip in the bud for its population, which Modi and co have groomed into, fearing people on other sides of the borders in Pakistan and China, et cetera. So I think it's an important issue for Modi but I think the two countries will work together. They have so much in common in terms of their agendas. Okay, they want to be they want a multipolar world. India has long argued that it should have a place at the UN Security Council's table as a permanent member, given its population size, its economic size, etc. I mean, this is decades old, this argument that India's made. So both China and India and other countries are looking for genuine multipolar world. Can it exist with the zero-sum mentality of the Americans? Probably not. And China's speaking a good, is singing a good tune. It's talking about indivisible security. It's talking about business. It's talking about develop. These are things that the global South absolutely, global South leaders absolutely want to hear.
She is talking about the democratization of international relations based on the UN Charter, based on the World Trade Organization. He's essentially saying we need to put a stop to the bullying.
And the honestly, you're just seeing a few Western media headlines. They're frightened. They're talking about the Chinese and their allies, basically trying to destroy the Western neoliberal order, which everyone should want gone. Let's go back to, even if you want the UN Charter, which starts off well, but you have to be able to implement it. So, everything that's coming out of China, everything that was heard at the SCO meeting were along the lines, maybe these are China's sort of the Communist Party's own, its own agenda, but it resonates with everybody. This is not just a Chinese thought. The fact that so many people have signed up to join the SCO, to become partner nations, observer nations, etc., goes to show that these are thoughts and ideas that resonate with the global majority. But I would say what was very interesting that did happen at the SCO meeting is apparently, allegedly, India nixed Azerbaijan's efforts to become a member state. Now, this isn't like Iran. It took Iran three bids at 3 different times to get accepted as a member state. Don't forget, with the SCO, there's a firm rule that any of the current 10 existing full permanent members of the SCO can veto another state's bid. Okay, that might change over time, but right now that's how it goes, because the core countries, the 10 core countries, are there for a reason. They are there, and the SCO, as opposed to the BRICS, is much more concerned about security, about countering terrorism, drug trafficking, real security issues, obviously economic and other things. As the organization has grown and taken on new members, and they have common cause on economy and business, trade relations have, under the auspices of the SCO, have also flourished. But the SCO is fundamentally a security organization, and even though they're not an alliance by any stretch, there have been SCO sponsored joint military exercises, as well as bilaterally and multilaterally countries that happen to be SCO members doing joint military exercises. But Modi's takedown of Azerbaijan was, the Indians are saying, these very pro-US Indians are saying, no. You see, the reason Modi did this is because he would have vetoed anybody. You see, India doesn't really want the SCO to grow and flourish. But of course, India didn't have a problem with Iran joining a year and a bit ago. India didn't have a problem with Belarus joining more recently, right? But with Azerbaijan, it did. Now, this is where things get complicated. Turkey, Pakistan, Azerbaijan are thick as thieves, okay? Even though Pakistan is close to India, a relationship that's probably developed in part because of animosity between India and China, right? But Azerbaijan has been acting very aggressively and arrogantly on the regional stage. India is also a very good friend of Russia's, as we know. They're going to continue buying Russian products. But the Russians and Azerbaijanis have had, as of this summer, their relations have, gone into a tailspin. They have just one-upped each other, and it gets worse and worse for a variety of reasons. But Azerbaijan is also trying to jump in with Turkey and take control of east-west trade corridors in Asia and through Central Asia. And India, don't forget, is a partner with Russia and Iran in not a horizontal corridor, but a vertical one, the International North-South INSTIC, International North-South Transportation Corridor, which is already underway. Azerbaijan and Turkey seek to create their own corridors, bypassing some of these or using them, and then getting it's a bid to gain hegemony. But I think more importantly than the root contest and the economic contest, there you can see the east-west corridor is sort of where Azerbaijan and Turkey want to come into play, and then go ahead.
Yeah, so the INSTC is the route that starts in Mumbai, or you can start from Moscow, and it shortens the way because you're not passing through the Suez Canal, so you can go Mumbai, Iran, and directly to Moscow. So this is the INSTC, and this is a well-established route. I think last year they did the first shipment, and they announced that it was done like 2 or 3 years ago, and then they tested it, and now this is successfully operating. And the other thing is the middle corridor that Sharmin was talking about, which is this one. Now I will display it. So this a map that we did previously at the Cradle. So the red one is the middle corridor. And if we can see here, we can read Baku. And Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan, the country that Sharmin is talking about. And here's Turkey. So that's what's conflicting between India and Azerbaijan.
And just to let you know, so India and Iran have a port that they've developed together. Okay, so although India has been careful in the past about dealing with Iran because of U.S. sanctions and secondary sanctions, it seems to be going full force because the INSTIC, the International North-South Transportation Corridor developed with Iran and Russia, is a major development in trade and transportation in Asia. But there is about a few hundred kilometers between Iran and Azerbaijan that needs to be built for them to be able to do it by train track, okay, by rail. So Azerbaijan, again, could be a spoiler there. But of course, I think most of all, Azerbaijan came out, and Ilham Aliyev, the president, the dictator of Azerbaijan, of Baku, came out very strongly in support of Pakistan in the military skirmish this year between the two adversaries, and cheered them on in a big way. So India sees Turkey and Azerbaijan as sort of, staunch allies of its main adversary, Pakistan, and so they have a somewhat adversarial relationship with these two countries, as opposed to, India is very good with Armenia. India has sold Armenia military weapons for years. India is good with Iran. There is everything that's happening in this region now is based on these very fast-moving events. So I think the big thing at the SCO was China and India still on a good track. Modi and his cabal in India are, like Erdogan in Turkey, tend to have a more Western-centric approach to all things. But these are the kind of opportunities, Trump's tariffs, in which to peel away longtime U.S. friends who, take such an awful hit from the Americans that they start to look elsewhere. So I think the SCO meeting sort of, gave a lot of these countries an opportunity to speed up, to accelerate the things they're doing, because the world has changed from this SCO meeting since the last one and the one the year before that.
Absolutely.
So much.
It's interesting to me. It was very interesting to me the fact that this SEO meeting, because as you said, Charmaine, the SEO is primarily a security organization, but now it's kind of becoming of a bit of a BRICS light in a way, right? Over like an Eurasian BRICS, because they're talking. She also spoke about a development bank, about like a development fund. I guess that's how they described it, but to counter, the IMF, to counter the World Bank. And it's the exact same thing they said at the BRICS summit just a few months ago. And also, well, you had how the US and all of its allies freaked out about this meeting. Like Trump, I think last night, he said something like
even I freaked out. Yeah.
he said if the tariffs fail, then like the US is gonna fail. Like he said, he's putting his tariffs as the the salvation. Yeah, like this is what's gonna save our nation from irrelevance and from economic collapse. And then at the same time, because he was talking about like if we remove the tariffs, all of us, the US is gonna become a third world country, which yes, even with the tariffs, that's the way the United States is headed. And yeah, the SEO keeps expanding, and you also have the BRICS, and this just push towards multilateralism that is coming from everywhere.
I think it was also these two events right next to each other, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, where we saw, it wasn't just 10 members. You have to
They were talking about 20 countries, right?
Because I mean, you have, as members, it's China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan. So you can see a huge, Central Asia was the crux of this, where this organization started, what it started for, security, counterterrorism, etc., in those areas. But then India, Pakistan, Iran, and Belarus now, right? But you have from Mongolia, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Myanmar, Bahrain. Now, the latter countries I named are dialogue partners. A few of them are official observers. Actually, I think Mongolia is now the only official observer. Azerbaijan wanted to go. No, Israel's not there.
Well, it's an observer.
As far as I can see, Israel's not there. And but anyways, nonetheless, I think it has its hands full just dealing with security, because it is. I mean, it's not just counterterrorism. It's the freeing of borders is a big issue. As the Western order collapses, which has been the global order, insecurity rises, and sanctions and tariffs and trade wars. These are, again, water, food, etc., are part of the security configuration for these states. But so is drug trafficking and other kind of crimes. There's also crime rings that they clamp down on. And one of the things that triggered a Russian Azerbaijan downturn in relations was a murder in Russia by Azerbaijanis killing an Azerbaijani, right? And I think, I don't know, like some years ago. And Russia basically went after who they believe, they investigated, and they went after some Azerbaijanis who they believed were, committed the murder. And Baku went nuts over this. And then they basically shut down, I think Sputnik, was it Sputnik in Baku, and paraded 7 Russian journalists on the streets and beat them up. So it's a really thuggish nation. There's many reasons. By the way, India did Russia and others a favor by vetoing Azerbaijan's bid, because there's no way in hell Russia would have approved it.
Yeah, just to correct myself, Israel was an observer in 2016 only, and they did the opposite. Just now I knew in 2023 there was a resolution in the UN to join the UN with the SCO, and the only 2 countries who voted against it was Israel and the United States.
Yeah.
Well, I would have hoped to see an African Union situation. Remember when all of these officials were kicked out? What a great moment that was. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts about the SEO, about, or
I only was thinking about one thing.
I'm sorry, what is that noise? You guys hear it, or is it me?
Yes. I hear it.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah,
I don't know what
it's
that is.
maybe a fan. مهم.
Hopefully, I found.
Yeah, I just I was thinking, no, that's Charmaine. Yeah, it was weird for me why the president of China only had at the يعني at the front. Putin is understandable, but I didn't understand why Kim was there also. Yani he should be there, but he was like the major character,
I
you
know,
know.
but he's such a catch. If you
And
have
I
him on a
know,
guest list and he shows up, wouldn't you put Kim Jong Un on, at the front table? Like,
It was a message. Like to
yeah, I
have him at
know
the victory
exactly.
parade
That's
was a
what I'm
direct
saying
message.
because everything was designed. Yani I
I
watched it all.
wouldn't, yeah, I don't even know that. I'm just telling you, he's like, you know, the guy who nobody can get at their dinner table for decades. And then when he shows up, he's a big deal.
I will put
I,
him again.
I,
Yeah,
I wouldn't, I wouldn't say that there weren't a few chuckles when they decided to have him in the front line, right? As well. North Korea is not an SCO member. But of course, the Chinese and the Russians, especially, the Chinese have, both countries have always had relations with North Korea. Had relations with them and mediated on their behalf in many international scenarios. But the Russians have really ramped up their security, military relations with North Korea, saying that they were a friend indeed, I guess, when it came to the Ukraine situation. So yeah, I think it was good fun. He's kind of objectively cute individual. Do you know what I mean? And so, yeah, that was all fun. And really, the meltdown in the West was
yeah.
kind of insane.
It was
Like
epic. Absolutely epic.
Chatham House saying, like, oh my goodness, the two together, the SCO meeting and the military parade, really shocked a lot of people. And they say, like, China's casting itself as though this is nefarious.
Yeah,
China is casting itself as a standard bearer of a multipolar world led by the global South. What is wrong with any one of those words, let alone them strung into a beautiful sentence
Yellow
together like
panic.
that?
and yeah,
Yellow
and
panic.
in my feed and the things that I read, I saw that the British were more angry than the Americans because of this Labour guy who was in the Labour Party and he went there and he shook hands with she, and they are saying, yani they portray it as if she is coming to invade the UK in 24 hours, and this guy went there and he's like a disgrace and we should not accept him in the UK.
Of
That's
course,
so crazy.
the British are horrified because
Yeah, and the point is that China never did anything to the UK.
no, but
The Opium Wars.
the thing is that the British are going to be incensed because since the Second World War they've basically all they do is ride the American coattails, though they do a lot of the plotting and planning, okay, and scheming that America then joins. It's like it's the brain center of a lot of American foreign policy in many ways. And so the
As we saw in Syria.
yeah, and the idea that they can see the collapse of the U.S. And the collapse of its globally, it's. I woke up so early today and I've been on a flight, so sorry guys, but they can see that collapse happening, and they haven't sidled up to anyone else. Even the Israelis are saying, oh, we should have a lobby in China, but the British haven't done that with China. And so they're really going to be on the outs. And of course, they've led the charge against the Russians. So they're on the outs any way you look at it. Whether with the BRICS, the SCO, all the new financial institutions, the multipolar equivalent of the IMF, of the World Bank, etc. Nothing for Britain, and
I
they're
saw
going
a
to be left
headline
in the
just a
dust.
few days ago that I think it was the French economy minister that said that France is soon going to have to rely on the IMF. All of a sudden, The old colonial masters are going to have to rely on their own debt trap.
Austerity, no more chocolate in your croissants.
Oh, God, it is the
Here we
dawn
put
of a new
za'atar.
world. Satar?
Yeah, here we put
Oh,
za'atar.
that's so good. If you guys haven't tried it, croissants with thyme.
Oh, my
Okay,
God,
a
the za'atar
Lebanese
is amazing, yeah.
recipe is hot off. Oh, yeah.
Very good. Now you're making me hungry. Go ahead.
Before we close, Sharmin and Seba, I just wanted to comment on something that I had no chance. Is that when the U.S. Army targeted the boat, the Venezuelan boat, I think it's very dangerous because this will, yeah, because I think this might be the beginning, and by time they will target other boats or people inside the borders, and they will say, "Oh, these are from with the cartels." And apparently they might be only like smart politicians or like smart
Yeah.
young people as they did in the Arab world. Yeah. And for instance, till now, many people, if you go to online and you type Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, you would see that he's the king of opium and king of hashish and
Of
and these
Captagon.
stuff. Yeah, and the king of Captagon. So they are portraying, they are trying to do the same
It
there.
just doesn't work anymore. Here's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm even seeing this in the American press, that most analysts are saying, look, this is just, we think at this point, certainly, it's just a show of force. We're there if you cross us, etc. But the fact is, because I wouldn't mess with the Venezuelan military. And the Venezuelan military is now buttressed by the Iranians, the Russians, and the Chinese. Really? The Americans? I don't know. I don't know that this will hit anywhere. They just playing by their old playbook. They have forgotten how to innovate in irregular warfare, in threats. It's the same 10 threats that we hear from the Americans everywhere in the world. I'm not so worried about that. At least not yet. But
You
what
guys
was
reminded
Go
reminded
ahead.
me of something I wanted to talk about, which was like now the US keeps expanding its war front, and just because honestly what's happening in Venezuela is the US is
Yeah.
taking their war on terrorism and moving into Latin America.
And also, Esteban, before you continue, because we said it previously, Trump wants to show that he can do things that other presidents couldn't do. Yeah, for instance, bombing Iran, bombing Venezuela, and
Indeed.
all these
He's
stuff.
I
he's got the
mean,
balls to do it.
if Maduro says something awful on Telegram, like Medvedev did about Trump, I mean, we might see nuclear submarines, right? But I don't want to like leave today's podcast without mentioning that the Yemeni army has launched 3 ballistic missiles at Tel Aviv and Haifa in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Karim, could we see this becoming a daily thing?
I hope it will not be a daily thing. I prefer them to wait 2 weeks and then launch like 10 or 15 together.
I mean, I
So-
kind of think, I wonder about how this next war scenario will look like in West Asia, because everyone's pretty convinced that Israel will start up again with Iran. And I think that's the time for Yemen and Hezbollah to come in, because Israel's interceptor systems will be very much focused on in one direction, and that might be the time to penetrate, in my view.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting thing, and I think we with this we can start just wrapping up. And it's in a few days the U.S. Congress returns from their summer break, and a bunch of them were in Israel, causing up to the butcher of Gaza. And when they come back, they're going to have to deal with that old U.S. congressional discussion of the budget ceiling. Of how much are we going to raise the debt ceiling and approve the budget, which Donald Trump is asking for a $1 trillion yearly budget for the Pentagon starting next year. And this is the Pentagon that has failed every single financial audit since they started having financial audits, which was in 2018. You have the Chinese military putting on this display a couple of days ago that just like shocked the West. And the Chinese military
Yeah.
budget, I think it stands at around like $500 billion or something. It's like around that number. The US has, is going to have a $1 trillion budget, and they have, their F-35 program is a bust. There are
Show the video again, Karim, of the two.
Yeah, exactly. The new
Right.
generation aircraft carriers are a bust. Their their new ICBM system is a bust. And every year they get more money and more money, and they deliver their projects, or their acquisitions, whatever they're called, on the over budget, like way over budget, and way over schedule, like super late. So this is the army that is threatening to go and start a war in Venezuela and essentially sink Latin America in the same quagmire that they sunk the Middle East. It's going to be the same strategy. The strategy is going to be the same situation, because the only government that they would allow Venezuela to have is like the government that exists in Syria. And that is a butcher who is a yes man, right?
Don't you think after this parade, though, I mean, like we saw in that Foreign Policy magazine article, it was like, wait, we might as well stop. They're already ahead. And the one thing that we had absolute dominance in, the one sector was military, and we so clearly don't. I mean, let them try to pass the 1 trillion. Who cares? Let them overspend for like gold toilet seats and stuff. Right now, their adversaries are everybody who's doing well. US's adversaries are making things more efficiently, more effectively, and cheaper. And so, does it really matter?
Well, it's going to lead to at least a few interesting headlines, a few interesting developments, and of course, it's just going to feed into the beast that is the eventual collapse of this empire. But in any case, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. To make sure, before you leave, just hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to our channel, check out our memberships, check out our Patreon, and now check out our merch store. You can get Cradle official merch to help us continue to do the work that we do here. We appreciate all of your comments as well. Make sure to leave a comment before you go. Everything helps with the algorithm. Everything helps get this video out.
And just go onto the Cradle's website, hit the support button, and you will be able to access all our merch. For those of you who came on late, we actually showed pictures of our beautiful stuff. So check it out.
Go check it out. Thank you so much for joining us. And my name is Esteban Carrillo. I have been joined by Sharmin Arwani and Karim Sham. See you on Monday.
Bye-bye.